Okay. Welcome everyone to the February Facilities Committee meeting. Since we have a full house and a lot of people don't know each other, so maybe we'll just go around the room, introduce our name and what company or who we represent here. So if you want to start.
Sure. My name is Lauren Tarcio. I am the project manager with CPL, with the architect and engineer.
Matthew Kazabowski, architect from Energia, EPC project.
Alex Millay, with John's Controls with the EPC project.
John DeRay, school board member.
Andy Velez, executive director of operations.
Mona Novotny, district clerk.
Mark Levenstein, board member.
Kimberly Roaring, assistant superintendent for finance.
Darren Stridiron, board member.
Carol Mineo, board member. Beth Ferguson, fiscal advisors and marketing, municipal advisor.
And William Devine with TPG, project manager for the capital project.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so Ms. Roaring, we're going forward with item 1.01.
So we asked for Energia and Johnson Controls to have someone in attendance this evening because there was some open questions from the committee around the EPC. So I will turn it over to you to questions.
I had a question a couple meetings back about the controls. We had controls that were put in for the EPC for heating and air conditioning. And then during the capital project, some of the controls were switched out to different controls. How does that affect the warranty, should I say, I don't know exact wording for it, but the warranty for the payback to the district? Is that gonna change the amount of the guaranteed savings for the electricity?
For the EPC, no. But if you added additional equipment as part of your capital improvement project, your utility bills will increase in relation to your added equipment. If that,
So the controls themselves, it doesn't matter what we put in after the EPC?
so the controls, right? They're either controlling the equipment that was already here, or they're controlling new equipment that you added on, right?
Yeah, I believe it's both.
Right, so the controls that you added on to the new equipment is gonna control and try to minimize waste with your new equipment as long as they have programmed it to operate that way. The controls that we installed as part of the EPC, we're following whatever is in the contract for the EPC to be programmed for basically unoccupied hours, the temperature should be lowered. And during occupied hours, the temperature should be operating at 68 to 70 degrees. That's what the contract dictates, right? So the capital improvement, we were not involved with. So we haven't mandated or put a requirement as to what that should operate. So that would be something that Andy would take initiative on and say, okay, I want the new equipment to be set back, down to 55 degrees during unoccupied hours and 68 degrees during occupied hours.
But if the new controls are controlling the equipment that was designed for the EPC, how does that work? The guaranteed savings.
The guaranteed, so that controls, even if the new controls need to be scheduled as per the EPC dictates. Right, the controls are controls. It's just the way you're achieving the savings is, yes, you're putting new controls on it, but you have to program the controls to reduce your energy consumption during off hours. And even during operating hours, you can't have the heat be set at 74. The heat needs to be set at 68 or 70, whatever the kind. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. During unoccupied hours, I believe it's supposed to be 55. But if you're letting the building run at 65 during unoccupied hours, you are going to use more energy.
So shouldn't that be coordinated with Johnson Controls? The new controls should be coordinated with you and with Andy to make sure we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
Has that been done?
I'm not sure because
Okay, I may for a minute. We haven't installed the new HVAC equipment yet. And TPG can provide an update on where we are with that. it's my understanding that, units are being replaced in totality. So we may have had a univent there that was just doing heating. Now it will be a univent that's doing heating and cooling, right? So that controller is gonna go back in, but it's gonna control a different piece of equipment because there's more to that piece of equipment. So given some of the complexities, right, as we go through and we add the AC throughout the district, because each building's gonna be fully air conditioned, some of the controls will be able to be reused, some of them might not. But there is question and concern about how that calculation will be done to know if the district will still receive our guaranteed savings as we move through the life of the CPC. Treatment.
So it's basically exactly what I said before, right? So even if you put new controls in, we need to make sure the new controls are the system's being curtailed, meaning the setbacks are in place, the schedules are in place, and the building's operating as they should, not just the system running wild. As long as we can make sure that those things are in place, yes, you're gonna still achieve your savings. But what I said right in the beginning, right? You're adding air conditioning now, which a component that wasn't there before. So your utility bill will increase in relation to that. Even if you're curtailing, that's great. You're curtailing, right? You're gonna minimize the increase, but you're still gonna have an increase in your utility because you're adding load that wasn't there before.
So we understand that we're gonna have an increased energy cost associated with the AC.
Mhm.
I think that what still remains, at least unclear to me, so I'm not overstepping, is whether or not that's gonna impact the calculation of our guaranteed savings.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not,
So we also, because we'll have new equipment, it will be more efficient.
exactly.
So would that also be party to the calculation of savings?
It can be.
I think what they want to see is like if you can differentiate how much energy is used by Johnson Control equipment, EPC equipment, and how much is by capital project. Like
Yeah, but
if you can differentiate this.
We can and cannot, right? Because what Kimberly just said, some equipment that we put new controls on is being replaced by new equipment now.
Right.
So that'll be a combination. It's like, it'll be some old, some new. So
Update your calculation.
right, so we can take the new efficiency into consideration of the new equipment and do a revised calculation. But there will be an increase in the load because you're adding air conditioning as an additional component to it.
If I can just interrupt, then Mr. Stern, you can go back. So in figuring out the savings, how do you actually do that? If you can't say, okay, you use X amount of electricity, 10 megahertz or whatever the thing is, how do you say that, oh, yes, Newburgh School District, you did save X amount of money? If we're gonna use the electric meter to now register the old unit savings that just was heat and now we're adding air conditioning, is there a way to calculate the savings from that? Or are we just going by the original project estimates from day one?
I'm not.
I think if we know what is the equipment, the new equipment, what is the power, we can calculate how much power it pulls.
For heating, we're replacing the unit.
For heating and for-
Let's go ahead for a second. We're gonna take all the units that are heating and we're gonna
Right.
make heating and cooling. So the increased flow is gonna be in the summer, because I
Right.
wasn't there before.
Right.
So it will be easy for you to calculate that. But the new equipment is also more efficient.
Right.
So what would be the set point that we have to set up that air conditioner to save the energy? Because maybe we save it because it's also efficient, and plus we have solar panels.
Yeah.
So when that equipment is installed, we will have to sit down with the list of equipment and
Calculate.
we have to calculate the set points, calculate the usage,
Yeah.
and then compare to the year before, and that's different. I hope that it doesn't affect the savings, because if it does, you'll have to cut a check for whatever the difference is. So you have to be involved in setting that equipment and seeing the usage that we're gonna have, and then provide the district what the savings are gonna be going forward.
So right, we're responsible for the heating savings, right? Not the additional
Correct.
air conditioning load. But at the same time, if we're by our contract, you're required to set your set points at 55 and 68.
That's what we did, yeah.
And the district, not you, Andy, I'm just saying, there's a lot of fingers in play. If custodian AB decides that he doesn't want his building to freeze and decides to override those set points and let the building run wild, that's gonna be part of that deductions that we're gonna take, because we're not gonna be held responsible for, custodian may be running the building block. So just so, but I agree with Andy, you're right. We need to be involved to differentiate those savings and to be able to show that. But at the same time, we are trending the BMS, meaning we are looking at every, classroom and every building as a whole to see, is it being set down or is it being run wild? So we will take that database into consideration on an annual basis when we need to provide an annual savings report to the district.
Mr. Stern,
So is the plan, once we close out Heritage, Vales Gate, and New Windsor, those are the 3 projects that are gonna end within the next year, for Johnson Controls to sit down with everybody and go over the equipment and then come up with this is what savings is gonna be once you see everything in place?
So the EPC savings is already been established, right? We have a contract amendment, and there is a kilowatt hours, MMBTU, and dollars associated with those savings, right? So once we have certificate of completion signed by the district, the EPC is in year 1 of guaranteed savings. We're going to start calculating savings starting year 1. What you're doing with the capital project is not a condition to the EPC guaranteed savings starting. But when that does finish, we can sit with Andy and whoever else to figure out what that additional impact is going to be. Given that you're going to give us the list of the equipment and then we can figure out, like Andy said, the increase in efficiency of the equipment and the additional air conditioning load on the equipment, we can figure out what that impact is going to be, and we can show you that.
I think it would be good to have, once we close each building out, a full assessment of what the energy usage of the building would be.
May I ask a question? So just so the units that we're swapping out, the units that are in place now, both at Heritage and Vales Gate, are part of the EPC program. And we haven't touched them yet, right? So they're part of your calculation, part of your savings. So the only difference that you'll have to recalculate is over the summer months when we're drawing for air conditioning.
Right.
Is that correct? So that would be the only difference in calculation, would be the load over the summer.
Yeah.
While we're using AC. Everything else stays the same.
Mhm.
The heating season stays the same, as long as the set points are correct.
Exactly.
So the only difference would be,
The added-
2 or 3 months. over
Added
the summer.
electrical load, yeah.
Mr. Dore, do you have any questions?
No, I actually, are these heat pumps you're putting in, or are you just putting units with the hot water?
We're putting individual hot water.
Just, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Stern, have any more?
So as far as
Next cooling.
when the guaranteed savings starts, so when we close out, is that what you said? We sign some close
Right,
out?
we still don't have final payment, we still don't have it's called certificate of completion certificate. So the district has to sign that, and we have to get our final payment, and then only the guarantee starts.
But there are certain reasons why we haven't closed out. yet,
Right.
And that's being worked on between parties.
Yes.
So when did this start? When did this EPC project start? How many years ago was that?
Jesus.
2017.
8 years ago.
17?
Yeah, 17.
Well, if you want to say from the time that the contract was signed, it's probably 2017, right?
Yeah, 17 when the.
And then it goes to SED for approval, and then I don't know exactly when we start construction, but
The
I
fall
want
of
to say.
18, the fall of 18 we start construction.
Yeah, so.
And the savings are calculated or estimated over how many years?
18 years.
18 years. payback.
18 years payback
Yeah.
for what was paid for. Okay.
So here's a caveat, right? We started the project in fall of 2018. We're in 2022 right now, or 23, I'm sorry. I'm a couple of months behind. All the savings that has been being achieved by the district right now, it's free money. Because the reason I say that, right? The minute we took out this light fixture, whatever was there before, I'm gonna just arbitrary, it was a 60-watt fixture there. Now you have a 25-watt fixture here. So immediately, as soon as we replace that fixture, you started achieving savings. The district started achieving savings. But all that savings, we're not taking credit for it. It's all free money going back to the district until we have that certificate of completion.
Okay, and
So I'm working on a completion report right now, right? That will document all that additional savings the district has achieved to date.
so the savings is based on kilowatt hour, not on dollars. So we don't know what the price of kilowatt hours.
So kilowatt hours and MMBTU in thermal, right? But we analyze your bills on an annual basis to see what your current kilowatt hour rate and your MMBTU rate is. So we can translate those kilowatt hours and MMBTU terms into dollars.
Mr. Studon, do you have any more questions?
No.
Ms. Roaring, do you have any questions or comments at this point?
I had one quick clarification. In looking at the calculation of the heating with the new equipment in place, is there a potential that we may realize additional savings from our calculation?
Yeah, I mean, there may be a minute increase in efficiency, because again, I don't know what the new units, yeah, I mean, but like, it's not drastic. There's nothing you're gonna fall off your chair on. But yeah, there is a incremental efficiency savings on the new unit versus the old, yes.
So I don't know if this question is for Ms. Roaring or for you guys. What percent of the contract is finished and done? Are we 95% done?
100%.
So it's 100% done. There's nothing that needs to.
Well, again, the
98%.
98, okay.
98.
I'm sorry, Andy, I didn't.
No, yeah.
So there's still a few things that we feel need to be done to complete this.
yeah, I think there's only one thing lingering out there as far as I know. But again, yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
Well, I understand your point, and I understand where the district's point. I just don't know how you calculate the savings. We can have a winter like this winter. I mean, I was talking to Andy, there was no overtime or expenditures for shoveling snow. So how do we get a savings based on that? If it's a bitter cold time, or, so it's hard for me to control that.
Right, so let me explain that to you, right? So what the savings, the way we calculate our savings is by each ECM. ECM is energy conservation measure, right? So I'm gonna use lighting to start, right? So we put new lighting in. So what I explained before, we took a 60-watt fixture out, we put a 30-watt fixture in, or 20-watt fixture in. So your savings is 30 watts, right? And we in the contract, we say the district is operating that specific room for 3,000 hours annually. So that is your savings. So whether cold, hot, doesn't matter, right? So same thing with the boiler. I'm gonna go to the boiler now. We took an electric boiler out of the library and put a gas boiler in, right? So you were using, I'm gonna throw 100,000 kilowatt hours to heat the building with electricity. You convert that to gas. Now we're translating that to gas. We're only using 2,000 therms, right? But your 100,000 kilowatt hours costs a lot more than your 2,000 therms does. So that whatever that delta in cost is your savings. Again, no weather impact in that.
Okay, so just a quick thing, and to end it, unless someone has more to say. If it's theoretical savings, basically, I'm getting, if someone leaves this light on 24 hours a day, we don't have that savings. We don't see, when you look at the electric bill and say, oh, look at how many, kilowatt hours, you don't know that was left on 24 hours a day.
That's exactly why we cannot do a utility bill comparison, right? So there is a such thing called utility bill comparison savings, right? So that's exactly what you just said right now is why we cannot take that risk, because the town would be paying shortfalls left and right. So that is exactly, so what we do is measure by measure is what we do. So on the years like this year, yes, you're gonna save a lot on thermal.
Go ahead.
You're gonna save a lot on thermal, but we're not taking credit for it, is what I'm trying to tell you.
No.
And on the years where it's bitter cold, you're gonna spend more. But, I'm not gonna take the penalty for it either.
I understand. So it's Mineo, I'm sorry, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Go ahead.
So you're gonna take the degree days, because that's how, like, Central Hudson take the degree days.
Yeah.
And you're gonna take that by the consumption.
And you're gonna come up with a number.
Yeah.
So it's next year, it's 200 degrees the whole winter, you see.
We adjust for the
Adjust for
heating
that.
ingredients,
Okay.
right?
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, how many years was the EPC?
It's an 18-year payback.
18-year payback. So just a quick question, because there are projects coming up, and just hypothetically speaking, so we'll bring in New Windsor, for example, because we already have Johnson Controls through a subcontractor for both Heritage and Vales Gate. If Johnson Controls was removed and hypothetically replaced with a different manufacturer, does the district lose that savings?
Yeah.
Okay, so that building, if Johnson Controls was removed and another control company was coming in,
Yeah.
they would lose that building entirely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so question for me going forward, and it might be a little out of place, but while I have you here, I'm gonna ask. So when we go out to bid for these projects, Johnson Controls, obviously, the district would have to make a decision because either use you or lose you, right? How do we guarantee that price from your subcontractor when he comes in to help us swap out the controls? Like, how do we know that we're getting a great deal from Johnson Controls
So
if we
that's-
can't competitively bid it?
So that's actually competitively bid because the Johnson Controls equipment that we use is actually non-proprietary equipment. We purposely do that so the district does have that competitive edge, right? So the system that we put in here is called FX. FX can be installed and maintained by any authorized, but they do have to be authorized by Johnson to do that. But I think it's the ITC North that did the project here. There's CSI that they're out of Long Island. There's Cardinal Controls, they're out of Long Island. There's New York Temperature Control in New York, out of New York. There's like a dozen or so companies that you can go out and solicit bids on.
That's good news. That's the answer we're looking for. We want to make sure that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, what we do with EPCs across the board, we purposely will use the FX system so we and the customer have that competitive edge to make sure we're getting the right pricing.
It's open protocol,
Thank you.
anybody.
Anybody, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
they have to be Johnson Control certified, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
exactly. That's the only requirement.
All right. Everybody good and clear for now?
Good.
Okay, thank you very much for coming and answering our questions, and hopefully we will be able to continue on and finish up what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we leave?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Want to make sure.
Yes. 1.02 capital project update. So, is it fine? You're gonna do that, or?
Yes, sir. I can do it. You want to give the update?
I think I'm up first.
Yeah, okay.
Design, so
Ms. Tarcio, please
if
go.
you wanna, how do I?
You can.
Oh, you're controlling.
Yes.
Next slide, I guess. Scroll down. So we'll continue with the same format that we have been doing the last meeting. So I'll do the design update first, and then Bill can take over with the construction update. Next slide. So New Windsor is one of the two buildings we have under design. It is still at SED, although I do know that they've picked it up and they are looking at it. They've emailed me for some further information, so that's good news. So things are moving in that respect. In the meantime, CPL and TPG are working to get the documents bid ready. So we're looking at logistics on the site. Bill's prepared a site plan that we're evaluating in terms of where construction laydown areas will be, parking areas. It's a difficult site, so we're working through that. We have trees that were supposed to come down, not knowing how long SED was going to take, thinking we were going to be under construction at this point. We have to have the district, Andy has a vendor that is a tree removal company that can come in and do the trees. And it's important we get the trees down before March 31st. If you remember way back when we did a seeker process, they identified the area as being a bat habitat. So there's a period of time between March 31st and November 1st where we can't take any trees down. So Andy has been kind enough to get a contractor involved and come and take those trees down in advance of that date. Next slide.
Good, before we go to CT.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions on New Windsor at all?
The trees are coming down this weekend.
There you go.
But it's in the agenda
Out of
this
the
year.
capital
It's on the
project
agenda.
though? Is it out of the capital? project?
It'll be fun.
I got a contractor, we want to pay to the capital project, correct? Yes.
So just the one question I have, the questions that SED sent you on New Windsor, does that give you any kind of hint that it's, they're just looking for something simple or?
Yeah, well, the question was, so we've already gone through our review. I think I've updated you previously and I probably should have said that. So we've gone through our technical review, both engineering and architectural. Everybody signed off on it. So what we're waiting on is the project manager financial sign off, as well as the preliminary submission. So because this was an addition to the building, we had to submit something completely separate, trying to get them to understand the enrollment impacts on the building, how many classrooms are in the building, and that will basically tell you or tell SED how much building aid they can give you for this building. So they're determining that right now, and that was the question that SED came to me with. They wanted to get electronic floor plans because it was just easier for them to look at, and then as well as an Excel spreadsheet of the list of spaces, both existing and new, so they could kind of do the math a little bit easier. So hopefully that's speeding up. So last correspondence before that was with the project manager, and she said it was going to be about 4 weeks. So I think we're coming up in the next couple of weeks of seeing something from them.
Good. Okay. Continue on, please, with CT.
So CTE, you guys approved a redesign proposal last month. So we've been working on getting the floor plans worked out with those changes. We also have some facade changes. So we've recently gotten some feedback on the facade. So we're getting that worked into the model. We had a meeting just on Monday to just talk about schedule. You'll see here, I won't reiterate the dates, but these were the dates that we're planning on having reviews with the district. They're just periodic construction document reviews to make sure we're all talking the same language and we're on the right track. The district does have a little bit of work to do in terms of programming. We discussed that a little bit on Monday. So we'll need some further information to continue on with the plans in terms of what the programs look like in those spaces, what kind of equipment, what those equipment needs are, what the intent is to even use the space and how to work through the space. So, some of these programs have separate classrooms, some programs have their classroom space within the lab space. So it's little things like that we need to work out and make sure that what we put on the plans is truly what the district wants. So I believe, and I haven't heard back, but we are trying to get in touch with some other BOCES that may be local. I have been in touch with another BOCES upstate that has a veterinary tech program as well as a plumbing program. And their facilities director has been kind enough to offer to come down and, or at least call in and talk to us about what those programs are like. Because you guys don't have instructors necessarily for those programs yet. So it's hard to kind of get that feedback. But he can be a really great resource to be able to say what worked, what didn't, and how their instructors use the spaces. So he would be available to do that as early as next week.
Go ahead, sir.
Have you priced out the walkway going up the hill as far as covering it?
I don't think so, no. I think
We had a conceptual
early
price
on.
early on. I would have to refer back to Lou, but I can definitely get you that answer. But I believe it was conceptual at the time.
Because it's a maintenance issue, because if you have concrete sitting and getting salt put on you all the time, and it's just gonna deteriorate. And with railings, I think covering it may be a better thing to do.
So there is a thought now. Originally, it was students moving back and forth between the buildings. So we'd have an AM session and a PM session of CT, and then their core classes would be back at NFA Main. That may be going away. My understanding is the district's looking at a full day. So if you're in a CTE program, you're spending the entire day in the CTE building, and there wouldn't be any of that back and forth. So perhaps the stair goes away if that's the case.
So what happens if there's a security issue and you want to get security from one building to the other as an emergency.
You have security within the building built in.
Could we dump security from one building to go to the other building, that maintains another.
I know you maintain, but if you need
If there's
an
issue,
emergency
sometimes
situation,
They'll ask for help from other places.
Maybe just as quickly to get in a car and drive around and traverse the stairs.
Yes.
The educational component, when is that gonna start meeting and who's on that committee?
I don't know. There was an educational component in the beginning when we were looking at desks and paints and what was it? I don't know what the district has planned for that.
So who do we ask?
Not Ms. Warren, I think Dr.
Can you ask Dr. Kimball that, please? Because I think that's gonna hold them up if we don't give them some idea. And here's my question. This building is not gonna be complete until 28, correct?
I think we said 27.
Okay, so 27. Do we really know what we need to put in that building at that time? And, you know, right now, do we have a crystal ball to figure out what we need in?
We
you know,
don't, and we've
programs?
already made changes because of
Exactly.
that. And
So-
there probably will be more. You are correct.
So we must make sure that Mr. Etrie is involved and that other,
I think Mr. Etrie is deeply involved at this point.
He has been engaged in the conversations around all of the programming. He's actually doing some independent research around the veterinary program. We talked about the farming program. He's gonna go see some physical spaces that exist and a nearby BOCES and how they used it and what their equipment is. I think as we've looked at it, we're trying to provide more flexibility in how that space is used going forward. So not everything is going to be fixed in terms of where it's located, so that there are some options as we move forward.
oh, good.
Not all the equipment would be even as we get down the road necessarily procured through a contractor. There may be things that we do independent of that to make sure that we have the ability to adapt, because we recognize it is a long lead time.
The other thing is what Darren was talking about, is the covered walkway. If ultimately we do a covered walkway, we really need to have something that's covered for handicapped students to be ADA compliant, so that all of our students have the opportunity to use that building in one way or another, get there and get back safely.
Well, so the comment from Ms. Tarcio that the district might be thinking of having students all day. If that's the case, then there's also gonna have to be regular classrooms.
And
in
I
that
will
building.
bet you that there's even one kid that wants to take auto body and wants to take everything else up at
Yes,
Maine.
I'm sure you're
There's
correct.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
There's gonna be cross, kids that go back and forth,
things that they're scheduling for the student.
unless they
The school
make
or
sure
the
that the
walkway?
schedule
Well,
is
on both.
together, which no, they don't have.
On the walkway, how long is it?
It's, I
It's
don't know.
far.
Yeah, I don't know the exact length. I know the height.
Security, if they're, you know,
It's
on
ranging.
college campuses, they have phones along the way. The security, is that something that we could look at? You know, just a phone box?
The blue light.
Yeah.
They have them, they're all over college campuses.
They're even at Mount St. Mary.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
It's just, you know, one more layer of security. That was my question. My question is, the last meeting, one of the changes was gender neutral bathrooms.
Yes.
And it said at the district request. What is that? What does it mean, the district request?
So we had originally designed gang bathrooms. So, you walk in, there's several stalls. That's standard practice, basically. And then when we say district request, it's a request specific from the district that is kind of outside of the standard practice or what has previously been approved. So that came from the district level,
I think
the addition of that.
Ms. Warren can comment on that.
So as we looked at the space and also being forward thinking, right, we know that we need to avail all our students of restroom that they're comfortable using. And there are expectations out there that in new construction, we would have gender neutral restrooms available, which are essentially single stall use. So that they have the opportunity to use that if they feel more comfortable than using a gang bathroom. So we've asked for that accommodation to be made. So near each of the gang bathrooms, there would be an option of the gender neutral bathroom for students to use. Faculty may also take advantage of them as well, because most of the faculty or students that are currently planned are in faculty break rooms and not necessarily in continuum with where they might be working all day long if they want to take a quick break. So it was a district ask, district administration asked for that.
Not quite what was presented though, so
No,
it was not, yeah,
there's an updated design.
Yes, there was.
Well,
yeah, that was not quite how it was drawn on that.
Okay.
Cause that was within the,
Yes.
within the gang bathroom.
Yeah.
There
So
was
it wasn't gang bathrooms at all, but what it was, and maybe I should have shown the photograph of what we're talking about, but there's a concept where these bathrooms are just single stalls, but they're not stalls, they're rooms. But they're off of the open corridor and there's a central wash area. And it's the idea behind that is that it's very visible so that for security reasons, you can see what's going on. I think the reason gender neutral bathrooms have become such an issue is when you have students that, can use the gang bathrooms, they get bullied in those bathrooms. So you want to be able to have the ability to keep watch on stuff like that. So that was the precedence behind what I showed to the committee last month. But we have now since changed that to just single stall bathroom located near the gang bathrooms.
Is that it for CTE or do you have more on CTE?
No, I think that's really,
So any other questions on CTE? Anyone? No, we good? Okay, you wanna go forward? Heritage.
Okay, so, with Heritage, couple things have been happening. Electrical contractor has completed, the existing building roughing. He's kind of gone as far as he can go, until we kind of get. Temporary shoring is complete. If anybody's been out there, if you see the rakers, the angled steel that's out there, that's what the temporary shoring is. The steel erection has begun. They've installed the lintels. Again, I always say inside the building, you're not going to see a lot happening until they get to the outside. The long lead items, I do have some bad news, and this is where this comes in. So we got word from the contractor. He issued us a letter from the manufacturer that the switchgear is where all the power comes into the building. It's the big main panel. At Heritage, the entire electrical system called the switchgear gets replaced in kind. So the manufacturer, we were tracking it and it was coming on time until we got a letter saying that we will not receive it until October of 2023. So we weighed our options. We went back to the manufacturer. We said, okay, is there a quick ship program, something like that we can entertain with the district? If there's a small cost associated with that. They did get back to us. The cost was, in my opinion, astronomical. The district has decided not to pay that. So we come up with Plan B. Plan B would be that you do have enough power inside that building to run the new equipment, except for the AC option. So you can have your fresh air, you can have your heat, everything is per code, I believe. Being able to run those units. And then in the summer of 2024, we know the switchgear will be there. The contractor will go in there. He needs about 4 to 5 weeks to pull out the old gear and put in the new gear. And then you would have the AC after the summer of 2024. There is a small cost associated with that, because now the contractor, in order to get the new equipment up and running, has to put all that new wiring for all the new panels that we installed into the old gear, right? Which he didn't anticipate doing. And then in summer 2024, he'd have to pull all that wiring back out and then reinstall it again. So he's essentially doing it 3 times instead of once, as per his contract. So the electrical, there's a small cost there, and on the HVAC side, there would be a small cost associated with coming in and balancing those units once the AC is running and making sure everything is cooked up right.
So why can't you just install the new gear in October? Is it because it takes so long and you have school open?
So we would have to shut the entire building down for about 4 to 5 weeks. You would have 0 power. Yeah. And there's not a break long enough to do it. Even if we did it at night, unfortunately, because it's the entire system. For example, New Windsor, we're just adding to the system, right? So the old gear stays in place and we just add a new section to it. That's something we could do while the power over here is still live. At Heritage, we won't be able to do that.
What's the cost difference? You said it was astronomical, like how much does the system cost and what's the additional cost to get it quick?
So the quick ship program was around $95,000.
How much does the system cost?
If I was to take a wild guess, not much more than that. So we thought that it was, you know, trying to choose my words right. It's bad business on their end, you know.
Ms. Roy?
I would footnote that by saying even if we paid the $95,000, there's no guarantee that we would actually get it any sooner. They
That
would
was the other
guarantee-
caveat. They would not
So
guarantee
it's
us.
not like almost like a bait and switch. You can pay us extra money, but we're still not gonna guarantee you're gonna get your equipment on time or early within October 2023. So we said, no, thank you. We will look at our other options because we don't believe that that's appropriate. for us
Can
to
we
get
just
that.
get something from another supplier?
At this point, it's just too late in the game. If this had happened 6 months ago, absolutely, we would call our suppliers and say, what's your lead time? What's your lead time? We did our research, myself, Lou and Lauren, and we called other districts since, you know, Lou's dealing with other districts. And Lou started sending me emails. It's happening all over the place. So the average time to get a switchgear now, if you were to order one in any district, brand new today, is 1.5 years. So for what reason, we're not sure. There's a part or piece that's, you know, they're not being able to get on time. They don't exactly tell us why. You know, the times have changed, but this was the first thing that we submitted. We asked the electrical contractor, we knew it would be a long lead. It was the first submittal he submitted. It was the first thing that was approved when we signed his contract. So there, you know, we made sure that there was no lapse in time to make sure this thing was ordered. So we did our due diligence and
So why is it October 2024 now? Why can't you do it during the summer of 2024?
no, so we receive it in October 23,
Okay.
which pushes us unfortunately to the summer of 2024. Summer, yeah.
Yeah.
So day one, the good news is it'll be sitting there. So on day one, when the district turns over the building to construction, we're able to go in right away and take care of it and then swap it out quickly. So it would be the only construction happening on our end through the capital project for the summer of 2024.
Well, that was my question. Everything else will be.
Everything else will be done.
And it'll be just that spring, they won't have air conditioning,
Correct,
in the building.
correct.
Mr. Doré, or do you have any questions? Andy, do you?
We're gonna keep the window units until the AC works, so we're not gonna remove them.
Oh, okay.
Can you have like a exhaust fan?
Well, the UVs will work. So the UVs will produce fresh air and heat. They just will not, we won't be able to turn on the condensers. The condensers are what, the box outside, that's really what draws
But if
the
it's
power.
90 degrees outside, you get fresh air, it's 90-degree temperature.
Right. It'd be the same as if every other summer that you, in the past, that's what they would experience. There would be nothing different.
They don't have air conditioning now, right?
Right.
Just window units.
Just window units, yeah.
Okay.
Is that the end of Heritage, or do you have more? What, you got pictures with Heritage?
Yes, we have pictures. We have pictures with Heritage. Next slide, please. Yeah. Oh, I apologize. I do have one slide, just to kind of iterate what's happening in the next 3 weeks. You'll continue to see the steel installation of the new addition. Again, the roof trusses will follow shortly after that, and then the roof membrane goes on once the steel trusses are done. The installation of the concrete mechanical pads are still ongoing. We got 4 out of the 6 completed, and then the layout and installation of mechanical ductwork on Saturday. So at some point, we're going to ask the district. I've already reached out to Andy and asked about programming. We'd like to get in and start doing some Saturdays at Heritage to kind of get a little bit ahead of the schedule, which most likely would be in the gym doing ductwork, things that are open, and we don't have to do any demo to get the new work in. So here's a picture. I tried to get a picture of the inside. It's a little confusing what's happening here, but I really wanted to try and give you a picture along with what I mean by what's happening inside. So you can see the steel here and the shoring posts. And that's why I said you can't really see because it's between that little vestibule. So all the block that was here and the window system has been removed. Currently, this gentleman is removing the block off the existing column. So we open up everything, and then once all the block is removed, we can start putting in the correct steel for the new building. So here we are. Here's the steel guys, just doing the same thing. Kind of wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like out there, and everybody wearing safety vests, and our fans for protocol. We're so close to that wall in that cafeteria. We taking all the protocols we can to make sure that we get no smells inside the building. Here's a little more of the electrical work and the wire. This was the last thing that we did here before we stopped our nights. Just kind of give it, this is the stuff I always say is above the ceiling you never see. So this box here is what we call pull box. Gives an opportunity to, these large wires can't go so far. So there's usually a stopping point, and then they re-pull again, and that's where this rope is here for. They literally pull the wire through the conduit from one end to the other. And then you can see it just gets closed in above the ceiling. And then this is actually the room outside of the switchgear room. The switchgear room is right there, and you can see all the conduit, everything from the building kind of transitions to that one room there. So. Current update on proposals under review. The additional fencing was a proposal that was requested to put around the condenser units. This was it's under review by us now to see if it's worth doing or how to move forward with that. The electrical contractor status. So the 41,444 is actually that's the cost for him to come back for 2024 that we discussed earlier to do his work. We do have a small credit back for floor boxes inside the cafeteria. We decided to remove those floor boxes. And then the mechanical contractor, same thing. This is the cost associated with him coming back in 2024 to balance the new units.
Before we go to baskets, is there any other questions on Heritage at all? Yes, sir.
What's the size of the addition to the cafeteria?
2,028 square feet.
2020.
I just have a question. So has there been a discussion with the district? You would let the change that would be is July 1st, you'd like to go in and shut the power off for 4 weeks. Has that been discussed with the district or the principal or anything to make sure that they know that plan?
For 2023, we've had these discussions in the past. We've done some graphics stuff on paper and sat with the principals. We've even done as early as I believe a week or two ago at Vales Gate. We actually went in front of the entire faculty, kind of gave them an update on the project and what to expect for the summertime. And we expect to do that again, over and over again until the summer hits, just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Well, because in that case, nobody will be allowed in the building, I would assume, if there's no power there for 4 weeks.
Correct.
So, just so the district side doesn't make summer school plans or something there. But,
Right. So a good point with Heritage. I mean, so with Heritage, I believe we met with the IT department a long time ago, and from my understanding, your main hub for the your computer system and everything is in that building. So we knew that before we bid. So the contractor actually has in the scope of work to bring in a generator, because we have to think about things like life safety, right? We don't want to shut your fire alarm off during the times that we have the building shut down. So, and especially your IT. So the contractor, you will have some power in the building, but it will be powered by an outside generator, like those life safety and the internet type items. So.
Okay.
All right, schedule status at Vales Gate. The exterior facade block is in progress. As a matter of fact, I would say they have about 2 days left to complete that block. It looks absolutely amazing. The new addition will be enclosed and heated with a 6-inch CMU installed. We recently just went through some design changes and layout inside the building, so we're working on that. The new layout for the addition. This is the new layout we're talking about for the addition. South Catholic contractors for pricing. This was just rearranging a couple of rooms inside the building. Again, the electrical contractor finishes roughing, so we're no longer doing nights at Vales Gate. And then the long lead for, I don't want to lose this or track of it, the HVAC equipment. We haven't gotten our update yet. I have gotten good news off the record, but I'd rather see it in writing before I share it with you. But we are constantly pounding on the door at that manufacturer to make sure that we don't get hurt there too as well. The planned work for the next 3 weeks. The interior masonry walls, assuming we get the pricing back and everything goes through. The face block installation, ductwork install of the new addition, mechanical unit and curb curb installation. There's about 18 of them that go on that roof. And the mechanical roughing at the existing building is taking place on Saturdays. So the district was kind enough to get us in on Saturdays. The mechanical contractor's been loading up the building, about 12 or 14 men, and we've got a ton of roughing inside this building completed on our Saturday's work. So anything we can get ahead for that summertime load, it's going to be a tremendous one. This is really helping us out and getting ahead. So here's a picture of the scaffolding going up. Getting ready to actually, there's a vapor barrier, which we'll show in the next picture. It's gray, it's hard to see, but these guys erect the scaffold, they spray the vapor barrier on, which is the next picture if you don't mind. You can see the gray gloss there. And this is what takes. This is where you see the insulation going on here. Current status, proposals under review. We have a door. I believe this was a new door that was being installed. Is that correct, Lauren?
I think that's the lintel, but yeah.
Okay. The cafeteria masonry walls, blocking and flashing at the roof curbs for the general contractor, under the electrical contractor, music room exit door, and then site work contractor. Same thing. We asked him to price out screening around the transformer that's right out in front of the school. It's going to get much bigger than what's there now when we do the electrical upgrade, and then asphalt millings in the temp lot.
Any questions on Vale's Gate at all? No. So just a general question, those proposed asks for projects, that would come before the board or this committee with a change order if you guys feel it was important enough to do? Is that the process?
I believe there's a dollar value threshold before it comes to the board. If I'm
Okay, in
correct.
other words, the district could approve it, it's district representative.
Yeah, there's a district representative that has a threshold of a dollar value that can approve under that. Anything above that threshold has to go to the Board of Ed for approval.
Okay. Anything else? We're good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Now, we're really getting all these updates today, which is good. We had finance update from Ms. Ferguson. Do you need these guys here at all for what you're presenting?
I
No?
do not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, you want to stay, don't you?
Yeah.
It's my birthday. I'm going home.
Oh,
Happy
happy
birthday.
birthday.
Yes, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Ms. Warren, I don't know how this is being presented or who was it?
So
Year or
there
two?
were some questions the committee had posed in the fall around increased borrowing costs. We've seen some interest rates and things go up. So we wanted to, we needed our updated cash flow from our construction manager and we were able to obtain that. And we have asked Ms. Ferguson to come in and provide us an update on what that's gonna look like.
So
Where we are now.
if you could give us a brief update of what's presented here, and then, of course, we have questions from the board members.
If you have questions while I'm speaking, I'm
Okay,
happy
we'll-
to
we'll
do that
follow
too.
that.
We can,
Okay.
that's fine.
We will.
So, yeah, so this is all about the financing of the project and how that is going to be occurring. So a combination, and some of this may be familiar or maybe not. So I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. So a combination of bond anticipation notes and bonds will be utilized to finance the project. And bond anticipation notes, just so you know what each of them are a short-term financing method that you can use for up to 1 year. They're issued annually and may be renewed for up to 5 years. So every year, the district would be going out with a new bond anticipation note, and you would get a new interest rate, and then you would pay interest on that at the end of the year, and then either renew it or go to bonds. They're utilized for a few different reasons. One, which I don't have here, is for districts and municipalities. It's sort of like a construction loan. So you're borrowing short-term while the project is being built until you know what the actual cost is going to be. But certainly the more important methodology for doing it using bond anticipation notes for school districts is that you can use them prior to building aid coming in. And in that way, we can minimize the debt service payments that you're having to make, because the bond payments are going to be higher. And you certainly don't want to be making the higher payments before your building aid is starting to flow in. But you will need some upfront money to get the project moving. So that's the most important reason to be using bond anticipation notes. The current ban rate is 3.75%. Then bonds are your long-term permanent financing. You can bond for up to 30 years. The rates are locked in at the time of issuance. The term will match the term of your building aid. So for something like the CTE building, that can be financed, that you'll receive building aid on that for 30 years. So you'll have some 30-year bonds that go with that. All the other projects are renovation type projects, and they're aided over 15 years. So then you'll have some 15-year bonds, mostly 15-year bonds. The current 15-year bond rate is 3.15%, and the current 30-year bond rate is 3.60%. It's interesting to note, for me anyway, that we're in an inverted yield curve right now, where short-term rates are higher than long-term rates. That's because of the way that Federal Reserve has increased rates. That should straighten itself out at some point. I don't know if the yields of the bonds will go up or if the interest rates will come back down, but certainly you don't stay in an inverted yield curve forever. It's just where we are right now. I know there is some concern about, where interest rates are and how that's going to impact the district. Certainly the Federal Reserve raised interest rates 8 times last year, and the Fed funds rate is at 4.75, where it started at 0.25% back in March of last year. So we want to take a look at what our original assumptions were and where we are today. So back when the referendum was passed, we had assumed a ban rate of 2.75%. But as I just said on the previous slide, your current ban rate is 3.75%. Estimated bond rates at the time of the referendum were 3.5% for 15 years and 4.25% for 30 years. Certainly that's higher than what the current rates are because there was a cushion built in there. So the current bond rates, as we just said before, were 3.15% and 3.60%. So the numbers that we did at referendum, the bond rates are still higher than what you're looking at in the current market. So that's positive. The original assumptions were that bans would be issued for 5 years beginning in fiscal year 2021, but the district actually at its option decided to issue almost 14 million of bonds in April of 2021. Your building aid ratio is essentially the same. It's ticked up slightly. So that's a positive, but it's not going to mean lots more dollars. It's just that your building aid ratio is approximately the same. Yes.
The $14 million in bonds is a combination of 15-year and 30-year.
That's 15-year. Until the CTE, so that was to fund some of the earlier projects. I'm guessing it was like what they were just talking about as far as Windsor and Fells Gate and Heritage.
And the pool was 4 million
Oh,
before.
That was it.
that's done.
It was the pool. You know what? I wasn't here at that point in time. Yes, it was the pool. And some other projects as well. The money for the CTE, I mean, we're talking about issuing a bond anticipation of this June to start funding part of that. And bond anticipation notes will be issued for several years until that 30-year bond is issued at some point. I'm thinking several years from now. Yeah. So there are 2 paths for bond issuance. So the district can issue bonds on its own, and that's called a standalone, and that's what the district did in 2021. Or you can issue as part of the dormitory of the state of New York, DASNY pool, which is traditionally how the district has issued its bonds in the past. There are numerous processes that differentiate these two, but what I've done here is just showed you the primary ones and are the basis for which you should be making be making, I would be discussing with the administration and Kimberly as to which path we want to use. The most important is building aid, how much building aid you're going to get either under each scenario. I really would say that's the dominating consideration. So under a standalone, your building aid is set at the state assumed amortization rate. So what does that really mean? The state takes an average of all the bonds that were issued the prior year, and they say that is the rate by which all bonds and projects will be aided. So currently, for this year, that rate is 2.25%. Yeah, not great. Under the DASNY, since you're going through a state pool, they're willing to actually aid you at your blended interest rate of what your bond anticipation notes and bonds were issued at. And they do a blended rate. And then, so it would be something on the order of more along 3.5%. So you will certainly be getting many more dollars in this interest rate environment if we go through DASNY. Now, there are points in time, and it's something we would look at before we decided to do that each year. Because if, let's say, it's 2 years down the road and the state assumed amortization rate is much higher and interest rates have somehow come down, well, maybe then we would use the state, we would use the state assumed amortization rate rather than the blended interest rate. It's just something we should be taking a look at before we move forward. There's certainly a time consideration. Standalones are much simpler because we're just dealing with the district and everything that the district has to do. When you're going through a state pool, there could be 20, 40, 50 districts in there, and there's a lot of shepherding, and there is extra levels of lawyers and rating agencies and due diligence that has to get done. So that process takes about 5 months. It usually starts in February and we end in June, just so you know. Certainly with a standalone, there's fewer costs of financing, but they're paid from your referendum amount. So every dollar that you spend on cost of issuance for council, myself, rating agencies, come off that 256 million. But if you go through DASNY, you do have higher costs of financing because there's certainly a cost for using DASNY, there's costs for their financial advisor, there's costs for their bond counsel, but they're all paid from something called a bond premium that's generated when the bonds are issued. So you're not paying for it out of pocket and you're not paying for it out of the referendum amount. It ticks up the interest rate slightly, but it's really not much of a difference. And even if it ticks it up 0.01%, well, you're still getting aided on the blended interest rate. So both a standalone and the DASNY would be rated AA3 by Moody's, and then there's a AA- by Fitch. Also with the DASNY, the district has really strong credit rating, just so you know, that's a great rating. This is for bonds only. Bond anticipation notes would always be standalone by the district and then would be taken up by one of these two methods when they go to bonds.
Does anybody have any questions? Was it very thorough and easier to understand the financing of the project? So I thank you very much.
I do have a question. So
Yeah.
right now we have really 4 projects, CT, and then you have Valesgate, Heritage, and New Windsor. The other projects, we're kind of in limbo at this point, would you say? Is that gonna, we don't have plans, we don't have architecturals, we don't have anything.
We don't.
So the longer we go with not doing those projects, the capital bond's approved. Is there a time limit where we have to say, yeah, we gotta get this going, or else the capital bond, the approval is
No.
void?
No, this is like 10 or 20 years. Well, 10 years, there you go. But that would be a bond council question. But my understanding is no, your bond resolution's in place. for as long as you need it to be in place. You have access to that 256 million.
But 256 million in 2018 is not 256 million in 2028.
Nope.
No.
So the longer we wait, the less value we get for the money.
I
And
understand
the
that.
more
I think that-
expensive stuff is that you
Well,
gotta
I
buy.
think that's even the bigger question, that inflation is, I understand that concern. There is an inflation factor and
That's internal that we need to decide what direction that Dr. Campbell and Warren has to decide what direction we're going.
Well, I think it should be a board discussion.
Well, that should be, that's not a financial.
Because the board approved,
Correct.
right,
you know,
no.
9 projects.
Mhm.
And if it turns out we get 6 instead of 9, that needs to be a public discussion.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
what's it?
Exactly.
And I think you
Yeah,
won't
yeah.
know that until we're a few more years down the road.
Well, we can't do years. We gotta,
I
Yes.
think there will probably be a conversation sooner than that, much sooner than that, but that wouldn't be a fiscal advisor conversation.
Yeah, that was my point. It's not we're going
It's
to
gonna be a
need to borrow
board
the money when
discussion,
we're
but it's not-
done.
it's gonna be a board
Period.
discussion, but the fiscal ramifications of waiting are big.
Mhm.
So it does come into play.
Any questions or comments on this side?
So just so you know what, in order to issue the bond anticipation notes, actually work with Kimberly, and then we get a cash flow from the construction manager. And what we do is we issue enough bond anticipation notes so you'll have enough money to fund whatever needs to be done for the next year. So that you're not borrowing more money than you need to, and we actually have a basis for why you're gonna borrow what you're gonna borrow.
Well, Mr. Sturdard's point is well taken, and we see by being delayed for one reason or another where we're at now, waiting for equipment and having higher bids come in that we have to refuse. So of course, we need to go forward with it.
And longer waiting time for things to come.
Yes, correct, to finish the project.
Our history in our district has always been, your plans are this big and then they end up being this big. And then everybody that doesn't get what they were planned to get really are unhappy. So I think that, Darren is correct. We have to be very careful about what we decide and then how we communicate it.
Okay. Any questions from Ms. Ferguson at all? Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
I even understood it, so that was good.
Yay for
But this is like way beyond.
I know, well,
We
the
tried to make it very.
The first that was
Listen, I give myself a budget every month, every week, so.
find numbers are always, never as fun.
Oh, no,
You know.
he would.
No, now we have, we're gonna go through Mr. Velez's portion, hopefully relatively quick. I'm sorry.
Much quicker.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, 1.04.
Okay, I got a picture here. Those are the trees that we're gonna remove this weekend. Over, I wanna go down and explain to you.
No worries, Bruce.
The new addition at the Windsor School is gonna replace this part. This is no longer there. It's the tower that we took out.
Right.
All these trees here need to come out because there's gonna be 2 connections to the building. One here and one, it's gonna be a hallway coming out of here to connect the classrooms. So all these trees, there's 12, 7 pine trees and 3 larger trees that they all have to come out because the buildings are gonna connect there. And because of the bad migration, we had to do it by March 31st. So I worked with Ms. Roaring and we got 2 prices and they're going to do it this weekend instead of the weekend. So
Was that always in the plan for those trees to come
they
there?
had to come down there because they connect, this building is gonna go from here to about here, the new building.
Okay.
Yes.
I hate taking down trees, personally, and I know that once those trees come down, that's a community street there.
Correct.
Right by you. The New Windsor community is gonna have a heart attack, and I feel bad. This is gonna be, it's gonna be rough. How is this gonna be communicated to the people that live on the street as well as the New Windsor community?
You know that?
Time sensitive. right?
Yeah, I know.
Very sensitive,
I'm not time sensitive.
Yes,
Wednesday,
yeah.
coming down Saturday.
Saturday, we're gonna start.
but people should know that.
Agree with you.
We've done that before. We've informed people when there was gonna be, when it was gonna come down and there would be dust and things like that. So we do have a process there where we knocked on doors, if I'm not mistaken, in the neighborhood.
Well,
But we
gotta
don't have
figure it
much
out, 'cause
time to knock
Saturday
on
is
doors.
Saturday, it's like
They
day
won't be able
after
to
day.
park on the street, they won't be able to, because those trees are very
They're big.
tall, so they're not gonna be able to.
But they're gonna miss them long term. The difference,
Yeah.
you know, not parking for one day is one thing, but to have the tree gone forever, that's something else. So, I mean, I don't know if checking with Dr. Sklar's should be, because I think she was involved in the other part of it. And again, I think they knocked on doors of people in the neighborhood when we do something like this.
Mhm.
Just see if that's a possibility. You can just check with the superintendent, see what she thinks.
Are you
Okay.
going to the tree, the other one?
All right,
This one? Or you jumping
this
over?
is in, you can jump to Temple Hill School.
Okay.
Over in Temple Hill School, over the past 2 years, when we have windstorms, we have branches from all the trees knocking down the power line. These are the power lines that come from Union Avenue into the school. Now, Central Hudson owns the transformer on the street, and from there, on 185 feet to the school, we own them. So when we had the last windstorm 2 weeks ago, power branches of these three took all the power lines down. So we fixed them. We talked to the same contractor that's gonna do the work in the winter. He's certified by Central Hudson. Also, he's the landscaper for the person that owns the nursing home on the other side. So some of the trees are on the side, so we're not gonna take that, we're gonna trim. So we can be below the power line, so we don't have that problem again.
Who owns the poles?
We own the poles.
So they don't have an easement across the property?
From Union Avenue
That's something.
to the school, we own them. All 28 poles.
Did we know that in advance?
But yeah, this happened in the past.
Okay,
Yeah, and we have trimmed the street before,
okay.
but it happened again, and the ones in the back are the nursing home owners, and we talked to them, we're gonna trim them, so we don't have the power lines coming down when we get windstorms. That's gonna happen on Monday, because we don't have kids in school on Monday.
Right.
Okay.
So we're not taking the trees down, we're just gonna trim them.
This is at what school?
Temple Hill School.
Temple Hill?
There's a couple of more pictures in there, so you can see the length of the. See how high they are over the power lines? And then we're gonna go, you can see here, we own from the street all the way down. Central Hudson last week helped us, they came from the street to this pole. They trimmed most of it. So we're gonna go from this pole to the loading dock. So I work with Central Hudson, they came with their people, that's on
Pole
the,
is in good shape.
this pole, this one, we replaced this
That one
3
right
years
there.
ago, and this one is in good shape. We checked them all. Central Hudson was there 2 weeks ago. We had a windstorm. We lost power in 7 schools. This was the last one restored because they helped us clean the trees from here to the street. And if you go, you see the line that they trimmed, and they did it for us for free.
Way too close.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have estimates for the takedown of those other 20 trees and this trimming?
Yeah, we have quotes.
That's improved in the emergency repair budget it's coming from? Is that what it is?
It's coming from our facilities budget.
Yes, so New Windsor is charged with the capital project, because that's part of the capital project.
And this
scope,
is coming
and
from,
this is
From, right.
from,
It's gonna be,
operation
I think, over $4,000 to clean them all. They're not coming down, we're gonna trim them.
that's not expensive.
That's inexpensive.
Yeah, I was expecting a lot higher figure. I didn't
I
want,
had my.
I'm glad I was
trim
sitting down. I
done.
thought it might,
No, we're gonna trim them, we're not taking them out.
okay. All right, that's good.
Next one.
So you can see how high they are over the power lines.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. That's what it is.
All right.
That
Yeah, you can see the poles all the way to the street,
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
down, so you can see all the poles to the street. So they're gonna clean all that brush and the higher branches they're gonna take down.
Okay.
When we do that, we get insurance from these people and all,
Yes, therefore, yes.
have dangerous profession.
Okay, so what do we have? Stairs and locker room, emergency repair?
Behind the high school, we have an exit that comes out of the north part of the gym, an exit that goes the stairs to the football field. In the last 3 building construction survey, we have pointed out that we have to replace them. When we did the pool, we were supposed to replace them, and they said we'll do it later. It's to the point that those stairs are becoming a little dangerous. So Mr. Carl Turner, he used to work for the state. He came and we looked at them. So we are gonna replace those. We're working on the plans now. At the same time, the boys locker room under the gym, we talk about that boys locker room for the last 22 years since I'm here. It's gonna get fully renovated. And Mrs. Ronan and I are working with CSRs to put the plans together for the district.
Those stairs, we looked at those in 2016.
We sure did.
And
Yes.
that was an emergency repair that was gonna be taken care of during the capital bond.
Yes,
I don't understand why it wasn't put in the capital bond, because it was a priority one item.
it was a priority one, and it was supposed to be done with the pool at the same time.
Who made the decision not to do the stairs? No, I'm just, okay, let's not say.
It wasn't us.
It was a decision made by a district level person,
Correct. Well,
because that's a safety item.
Yeah, but the pool was pulled out as a different project, an emergency project. NFA hasn't been worked on at all. You know, there's anything with the building condition survey of NFA wasn't done, just New Windsor and Vales Gate and CTE. So,
If you've seen these
yeah,
stairs.
no, I know.
It's a tripping hazard.
I understand, but my point was, if it was gonna be part of the capital bond, then it would wait till we get to NFA. The pool couldn't wait.
But it was never put in the capital bond, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the scope is for that, for the building. I don't know.
So
But at this point, both of these, are they being used with capital funds, or are they doing, is it emergency repair funds that this is coming from?
Possibly neither.
Or neither? You got another
We are working
pocket?
on the scope with CSR. They will be here next month to provide you all with base design and an estimate for that work, and we will work to identify possible source of funds at that time.
Okay, that's a good answer. I like that. Thank you.
I believe we were briefed a little bit on that, as far as funding sources.
and Darren, with, when we touch the buildings, we have to do the priority one BCS. Ms. Rory and I are working on that, because good example in Heritage, the priority ones are not in the project right now. So I'm working with Ms. Rory to put them in, because when you touch a building, SCD tell you that the priority ones have to be done. So we are doing that correction right now. In all the schools, as we go, we're gonna address the BCS.
Mr. Dore, you have any questions or comments?
Just, is the locker room priority one or just the stairs priority one?
The stairs is almost an emergency, and the locker's been a priority one since I work here. If you wanna see it, I'll give you a tour. And you see, it's gonna be priority like now.
I hate to be priority.
Yeah. And every 5 years, we do this survey, and there are things that don't.
It has to be done.
I was just wondering if you could separate them out, that stairs, you make that an emergency priority because
Do you know?
The thing is that the stairs are outside the locker room, so might as well, instead of mobilizing twice, because under the stairs is the locker room.
okay,
Yes.
understood.
It's right there,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay,
So when we come with that, there will be some photos so that we can understand the condition and the basis as well as what the proposed base design is.
okay, so we have what, 106 communication tower light?
Yes. Last month, I spoke with you about replacing the light in the tower. We got a company on state contract. They're starting that work tomorrow. I just want to give you an update. They're saying they'll be done by next week. Tomorrow they started electrical work. They picked the right day. It's going to be 65 degrees. So we also changing the classification of the tower. Right now, the tower is called a painted tower by the FCC. And the FAA. So that's going to change to a light tower. Instead of one light over the top, we're going to have a multiple lights. And that will, you can have to paint the tower eventually, but you can do it every 20 years instead of every 10 years. And this company is going to handle all the paperwork with the federal government, for all the permits they do whenever. I just want to give you an update on that, so you know that when you hear somebody going up the tower, it's not one of my electricians. It's a contractor.
So, okay,
That's it.
that's it, Mr. Velez?
Yeah.
Okay, any questions by anybody? And thank you for staying late, everyone.
Are they gonna do building walkthroughs this year at all?
I don't know.
Just curious.
We can, I mean,
It's up to the board if you want, yes.
you can schedule them now with the weather is,
Well, we normally have done it when we go back, right? Like in September, October, or no? That,
We usually go where we can walk inside and outside.
It's usually in the fall.
yeah, that's normally when they.
but we didn't do it this year, did we?
No, we haven't done it in
So
If you want to take,
it's not mandatory anymore.
No.
But if you want, we can schedule them and do walk.
maybe in the spring.
yeah, can do a few in the spring. I can take it to the locker room tomorrow, so before next month you see the condition.
No, thank
Okay, this meeting of facilities is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.